as we announce an important arrest following the disgusting attack on a 65-year-old Asian woman walking to church in Midtown Manhattan on Monday. Joining me in making this announcement to my right, the Manhattan District Attorney, Cyrus Vance, Chief Jason Wilcox, Tommy Yang from our Hate Crimes Task Force, our new Chief of Department, Rodney Harrison, Jessica Corey, we have Captain Tim Hollywood, and we have the case detective, Mike Rodriguez. The individual we have arrested in this horrific case, 38-year-old Brandon Elliott, is charged with a completely unprovoked, violent attack on an innocent, defenseless woman. You've all seen the video. The quick work by NYPD investigators in this case reinforces the dedication of every member of the NYPD and, of course, those on our Hate Crimes Task Force. Let me reiterate, we will never accept or tolerate hate or violence of any kind in our great city. It goes against every fiber of who we are. I want to thank all of the members of the public who reached out to the NYPD via our Crime Stoppers hotline and other means to report any of these acts, and particularly to this case. And that's a good thing, because it helps the greatest detectives in the world do their jobs, and do it quickly and efficiently, as they did in this case. I'll now turn it over to DA Vance to talk more about his work, his office's work in this case.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for being here. The defendant, Mr. Elliott, is accused of brutally shoving, kicking, and stomping a 65-year-old mother to the ground after telling her that she didn't belong here. So let me join the Commissioner in being clear. This brave woman belongs here. Asian American New Yorkers belong here. Everyone belongs here. Attacks against Asian American New Yorkers are attacks against all New Yorkers, and our office will continue to stand against hate in all its forms. Mr. Elliott will be arraigned shortly in Manhattan Criminal Court on 2 counts of assault in the 2nd degree as a hate crime and 1 count of attempted assault in the 1st degree as a hate crime. If convicted, he will face up to 25 years in prison, as well as other consequences related to his lifetime parole. Additional details will be available in the criminal court complaint, which my office will share once it is filed with the court. There is no place for these atrocious acts of anti-Asian violence in New York, particularly as the AAPI community is still grieving and still in pain following the heinous attack by the gunman in Georgia earlier just this month. To our Asian American community, I want you to know that we are here to help you and to listen to you. We have more than a dozen open cases and ongoing investigations against the AAPI community this year alone. And I want to tell all those who believe they may have seen or been a victim of hate crime that you please should feel free to call our office, our hate crimes hotline, at 212-335-3100. Finally, on behalf of our office, I want to thank the victim in this case for her bravery, and I want to thank the men and women of the NYPD Asian Hate Crimes Task Force for their extraordinary work and their collaboration with our office in this case. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Rodney?
Thank you, Commissioner. I want to echo your thoughts. I am sickened every time I see one of these incidents, either through video or it's out in the media. And this is one of the main reasons why we created the Hate Crimes Task Force. But we can't do it by ourselves. We're going to need the community's help. See, being in this line of work, our job is to keep you safe. And in order for us to do that, we have to work together. So if I could just give you some advice, if somebody happens to encounter a hate crime, if you see something, please say something. Call 911. Try to get a good description. If you want to remain anonymous, utilize our hotline, 1-800-577-TIPS. Please try not to get physical with the assailant. And too often we've seen people pull out their cameras to take video. Understand that that could be detrimental as well. I'm going to pass it over to Jessica Corey now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Shea, Chief Harrison. On Monday, our victim, as the police commissioner said, was a 65-year-old woman on her way to church. We believe the individual approached her, made disparaging comments to her, and violently attacked her, kicking her multiple times, causing physical injuries and substantial pain and suffering. The woman was taken to the hospital. Police officers near the scene got involved quickly. Midtown South Precinct officers were instrumental in the response. Soon after, detectives from my unit, the Hate Crime Task Force, responded. All available officers conduct a canvass for witnesses and video. The NYPD requested attention from the media, and we heavily leveraged social media as well. Multiple tips came in to the Crime Stoppers hotline from the community. The suspect's identity was learned through further investigative work. All resources of the Detective Bureau led to the Bronx Warrant Squad with a photo in hand of the individual apprehending him without incident at his residence on Tuesday. The New York City Police Department, as the DA said, is charging this individual with 2 counts of assault 2 as a hate crime and 1 of assault 1, attempted assault 1. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. And before we take questions, I have to say again to the detective who, the detectives did all the work, and I know from my prior job as chief of detectives, and I don't think the public really recognizes how personally the detectives take these calls when they get them. And I can assure you that there was no sleep until a perpetrator was apprehended on this. So, Mike, again, thank you and great job. We'll take some questions.
Okay. I'm wondering for the DA, you made a direct appeal for people who feel that they're victims of hate crimes to come forward, speak to your office. Last month, there was an incident. The NYPD charged as a hate crime 2 blocks from 1 Hogan Place, and that didn't stick as a hate crime, even though, the NYPD charged it that way. So how do you make this appeal, given that the office has shown in some instances not to charge incidents that the NYPD deems as a hate crime as a hate crime?
This year, we have charged as hate crimes 4 cases. 4 cases have been charged and are under investigation as hate crimes. Last year, against the Asian American Pacific Islander community, we charged 9 cases of hate crime. So I believe, number one, that our office, when the evidence meets the standard that needs to be proven in court beyond a reasonable doubt, will charge the highest available crime that we can pursue to conviction. So to the Asian Islander community, the Manhattan DA's office will receive your complaints, receive your information, and act on them to the degree and to the most serious extent that we can. With regard to the case that you refer outside our office, it is, as a result of our investigation, we believed that there was insufficient evidence, either in what the accused said at the time of the incident or after, that enabled the case to be proven as a hate crime beyond a reasonable doubt. There were misreportings in the press about whether or not he was involved in prior hate crimes against Asian American Pacific Islanders. Incorrect. And I think this is one of those cases where the police do a fantastic job. It is our office then that has to evaluate the evidence and determine what can be proven beyond a reasonable doubt in court. I don't think it serves anyone's interest to charge hate crimes when in fact they can't be proven. I think it sets expectations in the community that are disappointed when they are not met. So we will work collaboratively with the NYPD as we always have. I've said many times I have nothing but the utmost respect for them as partners and as incredibly dedicated civil servants. But there are times when we have to make judgment calls, not in the court of public opinion, what's reported in the press, but what's going to work in a court of law. And that's the basis for our decision in the case that you refer to.
If I could just follow up on that and just address that last question for 1 second. There's no greater partner in New York City than the Manhattan DA's office in terms of the NYPD. We work hand in hand collaboratively. We would not have driven crime down to the levels we have over the last period of years without their work. So I stand here with you. I've said publicly over the last week the arrest is the beginning of the work. It's not uncommon to see an arrest charged and then it subsequently be raised to a higher level upon further investigation of both our detectives working collaboratively with the district attorney, or sometimes going the opposite direction too. So that's just that's a fact of life and reality in our world. As evidence changes, as more information is known, and then hard decisions are made. So I would agree with Cy.
Thank you. Is there any word on the victim's condition? And also, I know there is a heightened police presence in Asian communities throughout the city. Is there anything from Chief Madry's end on the community affairs aspect of this that's also being done in response? Thank you.
There's a tremendous amount of work being done by not only Chief Madry's people, Juanita Holmes' people, and I dare say if I had Rodney step up here, the entire police department. You know, yesterday I addressed a Zoom meeting of religious leaders across the city, and it was a pre-Ramadan conference. And we spoke about Asian hate crimes at that pre-Ramadan conference. And as I look to my left, Captain Tim Hollywood, you know, Jessica's new to the Hate Crimes Task Force. And last year, Timmy and I were in Brooklyn when we had a rash of anti-Semitic hate crimes. And one of the beauties, I think, of New York City is, and it's the message that we just heard up here, the message to the Asian community at this time is you are not alone. You may not see everyone standing with you, but New Yorkers are standing with you. They don't all look like you. The color of their skin may be different. The churches that you worship may be different. But you are not alone, and we are standing together to denounce this. So that goes across New York City. As to the condition of the victim, we last, or at least to my knowledge, we last spoke to the victim yesterday. At the time, she was still hospitalized. Our thoughts and prayers go out for a speedy recovery. I do not know, as I stand here, if she's yet been released. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Brendan Elliott is a convicted murderer.
Yeah.
Accused of, actually, it's convicted of, obviously. How did he get back on the streets? He's killed his own mother. And that's really concerning to know that a dangerous man is out there on a lifetime parole. Your response to that?
Yeah, well, I think that that's a question that has many parts and layers that have to be peeled back. I'll say first and foremost, you know, we live in a civilized country. And we have laws, and we have consequences, and we have trials for a reason. The defendant in this particular case was convicted of a prior crime, and he served his time, and he was released to parole. That means something. And I think that anyone given a second chance deserves second chances. I also have made statements, though. I'm in a unique position in several assignments in the New York City Police Department to see the large picture of complaints, of crime, of 9/11 calls, to see what many others don't see. And what I see far too often is recidivists given, at times, too many chances. And what I said this morning about this particular case was, for the life of me, I don't understand why we are releasing or pushing people out of prison, not to give them second chances, but to put them into homeless facilities or shelters, or in this case, a hotel, and expect good outcomes out of that. We need real opportunities. We need real safety nets. We need to work with nonprofits and hold them accountable and replicate the ones that are successful. But just pushing people out and to think that we're doing them a good deed, I think is misguided.
Hi, Commissioner.
Hi, Nicole.
Just elaborate a little bit on the Crime Stoppers number, the tips that came in to help apprehend this particular suspect.
So we had several tips. As you know, they remain anonymous, so we can't give out too much information on that. But I can say, you know, with social media also, putting out the number, the Crime Stoppers number, it was viral. The first post that we put out on our at Hate Crimes, the Twitter account, it's at NYPD Hate Crimes. We had over 4 million impressions of people who saw that one Twitter post. So, you know, the public is out there searching also and, you know, giving us direct messaging us and providing Crime Stopper tips as well.
Hi, so my question is for Chief Harrison. I know you mentioned for the public to not record. It can sometimes backfire. Can you speak a little bit more about what people should do if they do witness this attack beyond what you said and why it can actually be dangerous or, as you said, if someone starts recording?
Yeah, so we've seen a couple incidents where people have pulled out the camera during the violent act and then that person's been attacked. So that's why we kind of advise, may not be the best idea to pull out your camera to film the incident. But one thing that we do ask is to please, and once again, if you want to stay anonymous, we totally respect that. Use our Crime Stopper hotline. But if you could get a good description, the way the person traveled regarding how they left the location, that would be very instrumental regarding us, the investigators from hate crimes or any other investigators throughout this department, help them be able to capture the perpetrator.
Commissioner, has he explained his actions at all, why he did it, why he picked her? And secondly, do you have a sense yet from the point he was released to the point of arrest, what was his life like? Did he immediately go into a homeless shelter? Was he kicked out of his family's house? Was he working? Anything at all about him?
Yep. You probably won't like my answer here, Rocco. You know me too long by now. Regarding individual statements or anything else, active criminal investigation. Our priority right now is to make sure that the victim in this case gets justice, and anything that would jeopardize that, I'm going to stay away from. What I will say is we believe at this point in time that she is completely innocent, and this was a completely defenseless woman walking to church, attacked unprovoked. In terms of you know, what he did, that's part of the investigation now. We'll be taking a look at, most importantly, you know, as we both said earlier, myself and Cy, the investigation is not over. So from the hate crimes detective's point of view, it's trying to link this to other attacks. Are there other victims out there? We know tragically that there are many more crimes occurring that are just simply not reported. I think you don't have to go any further than an incident that happened last weekend in Brooklyn on a train where we're still asking. I think somebody said today, we depend on you, and you know it, for the media to get the word out. We have a terrible assault that took place on a train in Brooklyn last week. We still do not have a victim that has come forward in that case. So we know that this is a fact of life, that people sometimes for a variety of reasons won't come forward. Rocco, to your question, we're going to start to walk backwards now, put the pieces together and see what, if anything else, this individual has done. And where he lived or where he might have lived or other people he may have come in contact with will be part of that story that we put together.
How many 911 calls were there, if any, about the incident?
That I will have to turn to the left here. Anyone that can answer that?
Yes, there were no 911 calls. It was a pickup job by the patrol personnel that were at the scene. They actually drove by and saw the pet. I apologize. Yeah, the police department was actually there. The patrol officers from that part of of Manhattan, they came upon the victim after she was assaulted. So no 911 calls. Detective Michael Rodriguez, R-O-D-R-I-G-U-E-Z.
question is that, I'm sorry, is that like the recent cases, the suspects, like, are they going to release without a bail or, and
I'm sorry, one more time?
are they going to release all the suspects in recent cases? Are they going to release without a bail?
Are they
Like
going to release
bail?
what? Did you catch that?
Without a bail.
So, as we said, I mean, this is part of a process. It's our system. There's parts that we like, there's parts that we don't, but we work within a criminal justice system. So we will make, and we work together. Si, do you want to address that one?
As to this case?
Yeah, will he be released?
Well,
Will he be bailed?
At arraignment, given all the facts and background that we know, we will ask for remand, which would be for the judge to impose confinement without the ability to get out unless the judge somehow subsequently decides that bail should be set. So our request, as I understand it, will be for a remand.
And also the thing is that, like, you recommend people to call 911, but you want all the people to leave all their informations, like their name and address. How can you protect all these people to not get attacked? Like, how about their safeties? Are you gonna, like, how do you remand their, I'm sorry, what that word? How can you remand all their, like, information confidential? Yeah.
Right. So we're going to work within the law. And of course, we ask that anyone to call. You can call 911 and be anonymous. That is a fact. You can do that. To the earlier question about filming, the first thing we want done is call the police. Render aid to the victim once it's safe. If it's possible for you to get information such as a license plate or a description, do that. Do whatever you can with the facts in front of you that you think is safe at the time. To reporting things, whether you're a victim, a witness, or a person walking down the street asked to call 911, please do it. That would be my message to you. And we will do everything in our power legally to protect your identity. There is a process that we'll go through. We'll work with the district attorneys in the case to ask for certain reasons to have information redacted, but we will ultimately do what the law requires.
Commissioner, so far it seems the common denominator seems to be homeless people and possible mental illness involved. How can the police department and the city combat such a problem?
Yeah, I think we're one part of the solution, John. I mean, I think you hit that on the head. We have seen in some of these attacks some themes coming out. We have certainly seen, I'll turn it to Rodney in a second for his input on this, but we've certainly seen in some cases homeless element, a mental illness, not to say all. We've seen that. We work very closely with other city agencies. We have units that go out and try to proactively address some of these concerns and get people the help they need. But ultimately, everything that we do, from waking up at night to going to bed at night, is strategizing about how to keep New Yorkers safe in a pretty difficult time. Rodney, anything you want to add?
Yeah, and you know what the unfortunate part is? Our perpetrators touch all demographics. We've seen them young, we've seen them old, we've seen them black, we've seen them white. I mean, I wish there was a way that we could kind of identify a certain group of individuals, but each one of these incidents are isolated incidents. So in regards to taking a look at what our perpetrators look like and what the motive is necessarily behind each one, I wish I had a better answer for you.
Yeah, and just riffing off of John Doyle's question, we were at the shelter this morning. A lot of the residents, a lot of neighbors just don't feel safe, and now the NYPD is no longer involved in security at shelters. And so what's the solution?
Well, I think I touched on it in the last answer. It certainly challenges, but it's not that we're not involved. We're always involved in New York City. We're always involved in public safety. So it's up to us to work with these other agencies. It's up to us to be on top of our game when we're holding ComStat meetings and analyzing what's going on in the city. And to go back to John's question, one other thing is, very proud to stand up here and be able to tout the great work of our detectives. But at the same time, I hate standing up here because I know what that woman went through and what she's going to face for the rest of her life. and what she'll face emotionally for the rest of her life. Our goal is to have that incident not happen. So if we are going to get serious about prevention, you really have to start taking a look, John, at the litany of perpetrators that we are identifying and really looking at what's some common denominators. And what you see is you see smoke beforehand many, many times. You see lower level arrests many, many times. You see open court cases many, many times that, quite frankly, if they were dealt with in a different manner, we would not be standing here now. So that's the frustration part regarding the prevention piece, because New Yorkers need to be safe.
Hi there. So in the surveillance video, we saw an individual who simply closed the door, a building employee, and didn't do anything in regards to helping. Could you comment if he actually ended up calling 911 and what he should have done differently in that situation?
I don't know. I'm sure that the detectives will be, if they haven't already, interviewing those employees. I'm torn on that one. I fully understand the public's anger. Many times you see it on social media. I can't put myself in those employees. I like to think that anyone would step in and protect the woman from that brutal attack. I don't know if they were scared. I really don't know. So my focus is on the victim, and my focus is on the individual. Let's not lose sight of who's responsible for this, and that's the individual that committed the crime.
We're going to shift here. We have to let the district attorney go.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. They were all for Chief Harrison, right?
Yes, sir. Is there a concern about the new marijuana legislation and laws passed that it may be possible to smoke marijuana out in the street?
Yeah, absolutely, there's concerns. I mean, I understand. I think we kind of saw this one coming for some time now as you look across the landscape of the country. And I get all sides. I know that there's people that worry about disproportionate arrests of individuals. The comparisons to tobacco, to alcohol, the potential revenue stream, I get all that. What I'm paid to worry about is, I certainly worry about the quality of life, John. I mean, there is tens of thousands is a real low ball estimate of calls that come into New York City. Rodney, I'll let you address it with your thoughts in a second. New Yorkers concerned about people, I can't get into my building, I can't go and take the kids to the park, and people smoking marijuana. So there's that piece of it. I worry about just a New Yorker about long-term health implications. I don't think the jury is completely out on that. I think anyone that says they know everything is probably a little being generous there. You know, we're investing money in addiction. Clearly there's some issues here on the health side and the driving side. You know, crime and driving are two other factors. But you know, it's a unique law as we're looking at it. There's a provision that is written into the law that prevents, in some circumstances, police from searching for the marijuana in the car. I worry about shootings that are already elevated, and anything that is potentially going to lower the level of gun arrests at this point in time in particular, it better concern you. And if it didn't concern me, I probably shouldn't be in this job. And the driving piece, it's a real tough. I mean, cut and dry is alcohol. We have an easy test. We've known for some time that there really is no easy test for marijuana, and anything that's potentially leading to increase of impaired driving, I think, of course, we're concerned. But we'll work within the law. That's our job, and we'll make the best out of it. Rodney, anything you want to add to that?
John, you know what? I got to ask you, what do you think about it? Like, you got to think about it for 1 second. Like, this is a quality of life concern that some people may not want to have to deal with. You know, I could go back to my commanding officer days when I was the precinct commander for the 32nd precinct and the 28th precinct. That was a major complaint. People did not want to walk into their buildings and have to smell marijuana. So I'm concerned about being in this new position. I'm worried about how do I help New Yorkers to deal with some of the quality of life issues that we see. So this is something that we're going to have to adapt to. But yeah, in regards to how the commissioner responded, yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, I am concerned because there are going to be a lot of complaints regarding this issue of people smoking marijuana going into the future, I believe.
I'm also not a financial expert, you know, John, but I'd be interested in that plan to get drug dealers to start paying taxes. That's an interesting one. Rocco?
For Chief Harrison. Chief, the murder yesterday at Port Richards Playground in East Harlem, the food delivery worker who had his e-bike stolen, anything new with that as far as video or anyone in custody? And can you just take us through the incident again?
Yeah, I don't have all the details regarding that, Rocco. You know, Jason Wilcox is over here to the side, and maybe he could talk about it a little bit more. But the investigation is still ongoing. Once again, we always request people to, if anybody has any information, call our Crime Stoppers hotline. But right now, the investigation is still fresh, and the investigators are going. But I'll have Jason Wilcox come up and talk about it.
So obviously, again, a very disturbing crime. I spoke to Chief McGee, Brian McGee this morning, who's the Chief of Manhattan North Detectives. I can tell you that they're working very, very hard on this. They've been working nonstop since the incident, trying to obviously get video, witnesses, and make connections to other crimes that might be happening in Manhattan North right now to see if there's any nexus to them. So right now, nothing that I can really report to you in terms of new leads, but it's being worked on very, very hard as we speak.
If I could, Rocco, just I'll turn it right back to you, to the public, anyone watching right now. That's a homicide of a man that has, to our account, never been arrested, never really touched the law before, found in the middle of a playground on 108th Street between, I think it was 2nd to 3rd Avenue. Anyone, about 11:30 at night, anyone that has any information, if you heard anything, please call Crime Stoppers. Yes, sir.
Any update on the Cross Bronx Expressway shooting? Second, now that the DA is out of the building, how do you feel about him not charging a hate crime in that case?
Exactly what I said. You know me by now.
I didn't want you to, have
sometimes to my detriment. Everything I said, I meant. There's a friction, and it's not a friction bad. It's a good friction where, what do we have? What are we charging? But it's got to come out the other side, and the DAs have to deal with that. And it's not at all uncommon for things to change as it moves through that system. We have to get to probable cause. They're thinking about, what do I need to convict? And there's different standards for a good reason, because we do not want to put innocent people or overcharge people. So that's why the court, it's built into our system to prove higher and higher thresholds. I meant what I said. He's a great partner.
So just to the incident that happened in the Bronx, Bruckner Expressway, Middletown Road. Again, very early in the investigation, they're trying to see several different angles here. Was it road rage? That's one possibility. There's another possibility that the victim was targeted and maybe had dispute with other people. There were multiple 9mm shell casings found at the scene. So again, very new, very active investigation being undertaken by the 45th Precinct Detective Squad and Bronx Homicide. So again, that's certainly, we're looking at the victim and anything that could help us lead to what might have been the motivation for this brutal murder.
You know, Rocco, at 9 o'clock this morning, I don't know where you were, but I know where I and Rodney were, getting a briefing on multiple shooting incidents. And you'd be surprised how many individuals shot or committing shootings just this past week with multiple either open indicted gun arrests or pled guilty gun arrests awaiting to be sentencing. I mean, something's got to change with this.
Commissioner, we were out there yesterday at the building where the woman was assaulted, and we heard pleas from community leaders, lawmakers saying that you need to move more budget money to the anti-hate crime task force. Do you feel that that unit needs more funding?
The anti-hate crime task force?
Yes.
You know, that's completely within our power. So that would be, you know, Chief Jimmy Essick, that would be Rodney, that would be myself and the rest of the team. I think there's a lot of other factors. That's just my opinion at play here. More than that, if we needed more detectives in that, we could certainly do that. But there's just, Nicole, to be honest, there's so many different factors at play here. Again, you could analyze case by case some of these incidents, and there's so many opportunities to prevent these crimes if we're gonna make some hard decisions. And I'm not just about throwing people in jail, but when you have people arrested over and over and over again and no consequences, and now you have a terrible incident, whether it's this or the MTA bus driver assaulted in Brooklyn last week, or the woman assaulted in the 112 precinct in Transit last week, you have to look and say, wait a second, the perpetrator that assaulted her also assaulted a mailman months ago. That's still open. When is something going to happen with some of these open cases? And until there's accountability, it's a tough, bleak future. You need to hold people accountable. Yep. Any others? Last one.
It's actually still the same question because I missed that the new discovery reform bill has been in effect since January 1st this year. So it requires prosecutors to provide information to the witnesses to the defense. How
Yes.
can you make sure this good Samaritans will not be in danger, and does the term all calls remain confidential means
I know
defense
about it.
will not
Yep,
be.
I'm well aware. You know, I thought that's where you were going before. I mean, that's the bill that was passed January 1st, 2020, about a year ago. And at the time, if you'll remember, we raised pretty strong objections and concerns that this would potentially prevent people from engaging with the police. At a time, this was before George Floyd, before we ever heard of COVID. We said we're passing a law that's going to potentially fracture police-community relations. It's everything that we've been working towards. There's opportunities, as the DA said, that we can ask them to redact certain information, but there's no doubt in my mind that has led to some of the people withdrawing from the criminal justice process. When Rodney's prior assignment with clearances, we've certainly seen a number of people, probably more than we've ever seen before, withdrawing from the process and not willing to be witnesses, and that's directly to that point. That's what we're working within. It's a real concern, and hopefully one day we can remedy it. Rodney, anything you want to touch on?
Commissioner, you hit all the points, and in my prior assignment as chief of detectives, that was one of our biggest struggles. Is, how to get people to come forward and want to cooperate. So we would get them in the door; they would be willing to cooperate, but then when they heard that their information may be given to the defense attorney, it made things very difficult, and people walked out the door not wanting to cooperate, and that's where we saw a struggle with a lot of our shooting clearances in 2020. So it's a tough legislation, but we got to continue to work hard.